Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads. And as always, welcome back to our Around the Hearth discussions. We need to get on it this time. We're starting a little bit behind, so we're going to get right into our announcements. Our announcements for this one, which is going to be going over rock hard hexes, which is me trying to be catchy, and do the hard magic system type of stuff. As far as announcements I'll go first so everybody can think about what they want to say. The thing we have going on mainly is we're going to have a special episode right in January that you guys will have seen, and we're going to do January, February, March, and April because there's 4 of those episodes. Hopefully those will be releasing simultaneously on the Gentle Voice, which is my ministry channel, as well as here on the Inn of Planar Crossroads, because they were done in the Around the Hearth type of format of a podcast that you can listen to. The first one that comes out should be Zachariah and Jacob and I talking about how faith has influenced their gaming, and then the next one should be how their gaming has influenced their faith. And then the subjects will repeat with Dan and Kristen the next 2 months. So once per month you'll get those over there at over here and over there as a joint venture. That's the main thing we have going on. We did just recently hit 12K, not 12K, not yet, 1,200 subs. So, woo! Yeah, 10% less than I thought it was.
That's still exciting.
It is for us. I've been doing this for over 8 years now, I think. So, once I hit that decade mark, I'm going to be seriously trying to put together something, because that's something to celebrate, to do something for 10 years consistently. So, absolutely. But that's what I've got. I don't need to log this, I don't need to have to drag this time out. What you got, Dan?
Well, hey everybody, Dan from Avenue Studios. I had a birthday party for my daughter. It's my fault we're starting late, so apologies to everyone. But here we are. We made it. You can find us anywhere on YouTube, Rumble, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. We have a bunch of new shows coming up in March, so shortly after this series for Fantastical in February comes out, hopefully we'll be starting to release some new shows. So check out our channel. We're doing some pure entertainment, still in the RPG world shows. And of course, we've got our Discord-wide West March style Kingmaker campaign going on in Pathfinder 2nd Edition with Foundry Virtual Tabletop. So our supporters are all going into the Stolen Lands to create new kingdoms. So if you want to become a part of that, we'd love to see you there in the forest. And we just, in this timeline when we're recording, we just got back a little bit ago from Page, Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo. Met some amazing people. It was great. Highly recommend checking that out. They'll be doing it again next year if you're in that area or want to travel to a smaller con that has some great people in it. I highly recommend it. Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo. Check them out. And that's pretty much it for us.
All right. What you got, Skrat?
I'm Skrat from Squirrel Plays over on YouTube, where I make videos talking about mechanics of storytelling, such as creating characters and world building, but also talking about mechanics of TTRPGs as well, both in the storytelling sense and the actual gameplay mechanics, as I explore and discover new, or at least new to me, TTRPGs to play, and hopefully help others find some new ideas and inspiration. But usually I just start arguments because I say 5e is no good, so there's that.
Spicy.
Hot take, right?
Yeah, I like it.
I mean, 5e's on its way out, so I mean, you could say it's a take.
That's right. I'm just ahead of the curve, man. That's all.
All right. Well, that's what we have as far as our attendees. We do like to do a normal thing, a regular thing, where we do a shout-out, which we attribute to Levi, who's not here this time. I reached out to him. Lord willing, he'll be able to get to the next one, maybe. But Levi's shout-out. And this time we are doing a suggestion from Skrat, OldGrognardSays. So, it is let me see, OldGrognardSays on YouTube, and you guys can see him on your screen there, see the stuff on your screen. They're very stripped down as far as the thumbnails and everything, but don't let that throw you off. There's a few other, he does have edited bits within those videos to give you cues for what he's talking about. So I'm hovering over so you guys can see that there are things in there. And yeah, you want to check out some things about that. He's got different things with his stuff, and he has a regular upload schedule, which is something I do like to see when we shout somebody out. So he tries to post, it says, 3 videos per month. So, there you go.
Nice.
Okie dokie. So, anything else before we jump in, gentlemen?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, I guess that means with the announcements and shout-outs done, everyone, why don't you grab your preferred beverage and join us around the hearth. Cuddled up by the fire, because it's pretty chilly right now, and when we're recording, and probably in February, too. So, as we discuss, rock hard hexes. I tried really hard for that alliteration. Skull.
Skull.
Oh ho.
Nice.
Yeah. But
the nut spells.
I know. There's even little runes within the spell. I like that one.
Yeah,
that's right.
Good.
Yeah. All right. So, we are talking about rock hard hexes. Let's do the normal thing that we do. Oh, I'm going to take my new timer I just got. Flipping it over, gents. Timer has started. 30 minutes on the clock. Here we go. So, let's get into some key points and considerations for you guys that are watching. So, some key points I have for it are, I think this is a great thing that these hard magic systems are a great thing for crunchy systems. They work really well for that. And I don't really know that they can be done in a rules light system. I'm willing to be convinced otherwise, but I think just the natural idea of a hard magic system, one that has certain things about it that are consistent, is very important to have a system that coincides with that. Otherwise, things can get really blurry. But you can give me arguments either way. Some examples of a system like this. Well, let me give 3. There's 3 key points of both hard and soft magics that I want to bring up and make sure we have in our mindset. So, the first for hard magic systems is that they have predictable effects. That the effects are predictable from one use to the next of whatever ability you're seeing being brought up. The second is that those rules and constraints are there, and that those rules and constraints on the third point are knowable for your players, at least, if not for the people in the world that you're working in. Because if you're having them discover these rules in the world, that's fine. But if your players need to kind of have an idea of what these rules and guidelines for this magic use are. So those are 3 key things to differentiate a soft magic system and a hard magic system. And that leads into examples. Mistborn is a very common example of a hard magic system. They use elements, I believe, metals, to work with those different magics, if I'm remembering correctly. Mm-hmm. I would say Full Metal Alchemist, for the most part, falls under this. There's certain things that they're using. They're using it in a very kind of soft way to our eyes, but in the world, there's a science behind it. In the world, there's a study behind it. So it does have a little more to do with what's happening in the world than necessarily what's happening on the page, which is why I can possibly be convinced about soft systems being usable. And then Avatar: The Last Airbender also has a hard magic system that works around katas and different martial arts movements, allowing that use of magic bending. And it does get a little fudgy in some of the episodes. It is not consistent. So there is a bit of a mix there of soft and hard magic, and that is what you'll probably see in most media. And in most games, you're going to have a mix of hard and soft magic. But for defining a hard magic system, that use of the katas is good. Also, Naruto was surprisingly scientific about its ideas of the use of chakra and stuff, and applications in certain areas affecting the way things are used. At least when they were explaining it to the kids while they were learning their ninja stuff. So that is one that you can possibly use as well. That and Avatar: The Last Airbender if you want a more Eastern kind of flair to your game. And some good systems that could be brought up are D&D, of course, is most of the systems in it, most of the versions of it are going to fall under that hard magic system. So those are usable. 5e is kind of loose with some of its stuff, but so long as you have specific spells that are being used by specific people in specific studies, i.e. wizards, and studied magics, you can kind of have a hard magic thing going. Pathfinder also is very useful as a rule system for that. Dungeon Crawl Classics would also fall under that, simply because it's based off of earlier versions of D&D and is going to hit a lot of those tropes. And then, I've not experienced it, but Warhammer Fantasy sounds a bit crunchy, so it might also work for you if you really want to go into some crunch. Because I do think it's anything crunchy.
Like 40K.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish Jake was here. He's been reading it, and he's held off on running it because of the level of crunchiness.
Yeah.
I haven't looked into it, but I've heard the same.
So, that's what I've got as far as key points and considerations. So, I'm opening it up to you guys. You guys had notes. What do you think?
Nothing.
Nothing. To say this, there's so much. You're trying to figure out where to start.
Yes, yeah. It is really good. Go ahead, Skrat, if you got stuff.
Oh, okay. Throw me under the bus. That's fine.
It was faster.
Man, the main thing I discovered while doing this was that I much prefer the soft magic in tabletop, but we will get there when we get there. I do. Let's see if I can paste this. You can pull stuff up on the screen, right? As you're doing this, like you do with the shout outs. I found this super nifty little graph. Picture's worth 1,000 words, right? Very simple set of graphs.
Huh?
I'll probably circle back that on the next one with the soft magic stuff, but I thought I'd go ahead and show it because it is neat.
There we go.
So you had brought up D&D. I feel like from the player's perspective, or I guess game side, it's very, very, very hard magic. But my little bit of exposure, it almost seems like the world building behind it starts drifting into the soft side.
There is some of that, yeah.
Yeah.
And when we get into the soft magic, I'll bring up something that someone has probably considered hard magic for a long time, but I am considering it soft magic. But yes, I get what you're saying, where the world building is one thing, but the player side is another.
Right. That's an interesting point.
And that's like, see, it's fine, because when you're making a game, you kind of got to have some rules there, right? To keep things from going off to wherever. So,
not that players would ever do that.
Yeah. So, like Easy D6. Have either one of you played that or?
No.
So,
I haven't played it yet.
Okay, so the way the magic works in that one is there's like just a few base. You pick not a school of magic. I don't think that's what they call it, but we'll just say a type. Like one's a summoner, one's just uses elemental magic. You know, kind of thing. Like one of them, the guys I play with, he uses one that like grows plants and stuff. But like, so that gives you an idea, and there's like, okay, here's how you roll to determine how effective your magic is. But that's the extent of the rule. It's just like, all right, what do you want it to do? And we'll see how well it works. So like the vines, the plant guy, you know, he can make vines come up and grab somebody, or he can make a bridge out of them, or he can have one come up and stab somebody. You know, it's whatever they want it to do. So it's like you have your basic rule, and then it's whatever you can come up with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which I think is more interesting than whereas, you know, you don't have to read over all your spell descriptions. 25 feet, and I can do this. I got to move over here, stand on my head, and twist 3 times. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's... I didn't put easy... I got easy... spoilers. I got easy D6 in the soft magic. But, yeah, when the more narrative a game is, the more it lends itself. I won't say you have to do it, but the more it lends itself to a softer magic. A harder magic is for when you've got, like, if you've got established worlds and you know how things work, and you as the GM have an idea of the solidity of the world that you guys are playing in. I think it starts to actually benefit those kind of worlds when you start to define the magical rules, because if you keep it vague for too long, people are going to start asking questions about, well, you said this works over here, but this doesn't work over here, and so then they're going to want to know, well, how come? And if you say, well, magic. And then we're like, that's going to work for a little while for your players.
Yeah, I want to get you so far.
But then you're going to start verging into magic ex machina or stuff like that, where every magica ex machina is just going to be the excuse. So let's say that the next time they ask, you say, well, because it's close to a ley line, what did you just do for your world? You just world built right there that magic is affected somehow by proximity to ley lines. In which case, your players now know this and can be expected to later use this information in some way. So, some simple remark like that can have larger effects. And it's not to say you have to use hard magic systems. It's just you can actually get beneficial effects from them if you use them correctly in your games. So,
yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I think it's like, I'm actually reminded, a quick shout out to Brandon Sanderson has one lecture series that he did at a college, and he talks about this exact graph that Skrat, you were showing. So I recommend that. It was really fascinating. It's more specifically for book writing, but easily applies to games too. But also what you were saying too, Adam, I was thinking about it. It's like it is a scale of difference. You're shifting in and out, because you could use a more open system like Open Legend, and then with that kind of restriction, that world building of the ley lines, but you don't necessarily have to have it hard coded into the system like something like DCC or Pathfinder, where it's really strict. And you could have that interpreting the rules. Like if the rule's bad, you don't have to actually, as the GM, you don't necessarily, obviously if you enjoy doing it, go ahead, but you don't necessarily have to track every ley line in your world. You could allow the dice to kind of help you tell.
I don't know what y'all talking about. I put all the ley lines on my world.
I knew you were going to say But it depends. I think it's interesting where, and maybe between these chats we'll get to it, of the difference between the hard magic within the world versus the level of crunchiness in the system. I think there's some kind of ratio there. I'm not sure what it is. Because obviously the crunchier systems just make it simple. And I will say, for a pro side of the crunchy systems and a more hard magic, I've had players, like actually Kristen, my wife, always talks about one of the things that she struggles in Open Legend with is she has to make up all that stuff all the time. And sometimes that can be stressful for her as a player, because she doesn't feel like it's stressful in that moment to make up the magic. She'd rather have the spell to read and work with it. So it's definitely one of those session 0 things if you're considering what you want to do. See what your players enjoy, because some of them might like tracking. I do have this like nostalgic enjoyment of the tracking components for your spells and stuff. It's definitely, I know if I start doing it, then I'll get bored and miss the open system style. But yeah, looking at just as a general thing, what do your players want to do and what do you want to enjoy? And at the same time, I think there's a scale there where you can be loosey-goosey, which is probably why 5th edition is a little difficult to nail down in a sense, just like you guys were saying. Because I think almost everybody homebrews. Half the 5e games I play, they don't track it. You know?
Yeah. I mean,
so it's like
people,
this weird in between.
Yes, this is one of my quibbles when people start to complain about the wizard fighter gap, like the magic martial gap. If you're not tracking components and long rests and encumbrance, then yeah, the mage is going to outstrip every single martial every single time. The magic user will win every single time. But if you have to consider, this magic user needs this to be able to do this thing, and they can't carry a whole lot of stuff, so what are they going to sacrifice? I think what has happened is that as people have played D&D and Pathfinder, and just tabletop games in general, and they've started to make their games up, we've seen a lot of rules light systems come out. And it's because people don't like to do that. They like to just have fun. That's fine. And I don't disagree with that. Have that fun. But if you are trying to tell a high drama story where magic is rare, that's a good time to use hard magic, where the magic's rare or stuff like that. Then using a hard magic system and making sure you actually use the rules as they're supposed to be done, where they have to do the somatic, verbal, and material components. They actually have to keep track of those things. Then you can start to affect the way how that power scaling starts to happen. So that's probably something alluding to our 4th chat that's coming up this month. But do consider that. Make it to where you have... If you're having trouble with your marshals not being powerful enough to deal with wizards, or vice versa, examine how you're using the necessities for that spell casting. So,
yeah, no, that's really good. We have in Bomb Squad the Bard, our Bard character. It's music and singing that his magic is, and there's the one bad guy's the Reeks, and they would inflict the Silence Bane. As soon as they did that to his character, excuse me, all his stuff goes away because he can't sing anymore. So,
well, not anymore. Not all of his stuff now. Right. He's literally deifically empowered.
But there's more coming.
Hey, it was a phoenix.
Yeah.
So.
I told you might be upset.
I know. I was waiting for him to die.
I know, sorry.
Oh well.
But I do love that. There's something fun about that, and it becomes part of the game. Tracking that and creating combat situations and thinking outside the box. That's a pro side to the hard magic systems, because navigating the magic system becomes fun. Again, if that's something that your table is going to enjoy. Tracking those things, again, being part of it, and then, just like you're saying, martial fighters, as simple as I'm going to cut your hand off so you can't cast the spell. Grapple with it. Cut your off of your disarm, it can make different situations very interesting.
And that's something I've seen in when people have talked about their past games in harder magic systems, like the older D&Ds and Dungeon Crawl's Adventures, or Dungeon Crawl Adventures. Blah, blah, blah. In that, it's the idea of we're having to deal with this magic user that's really powerful. How are we going to do this? Well, we're going to have the thief sneak up and cut his and steal, sleight of hand, his component away that he needs to cast his spells. That's a out of the box type of solution to a straight combat problem. If they just, and this is something that old D&D has done better than recent adventures. The idea that you can approach the problem however you want. This is how I personally GM. I just present the players with a problem. I have ideas about how it can be solved, but it's their job to solve it. And that's the point. That's part of the game. You do not have to know, even in a hard magic system, how something is solved. You just have to know that the problem's there. You have some solutions in your mind on how it might fix. But, GM advice, let the players figure it out. So, All right. We are...
What's our timer looking like?
We can do final thoughts, I think.
No.
Yeah. So, let me see. For final thoughts, gentlemen, do you dare to ask to roll again, or shall I assign who will?
Let's do the rolling.
Let's do the rolling.
Let's go for it.
Okay, I think it's been the past 2 times, but I know the last time that we did the rolling, Skrat won, quote, quote. So, here we go. I'll let Skrat pick this time. 1 to 2, 3 to 4, or 5 to 6, Skrat.
5 to 6.
Okay. Just so you know, I usually roll okay on physical dice. I say that, but it was you, Dan.
Ah, bummer. Well played. I think for my final thought, it's going back to... I mean, we always talk about the session 0, but finding out if your players are interested in this, or if you as the GM are interested in this, getting a good pitch together to show how this is going to make a great game. Because like we're saying, tracking that stuff can be really interesting. It creates a lot of opportunities to do things in unique ways, to take on encounters. It's also, you now have a million side quests you can do to gather resources for things. Some wizard somewhere is going to want a special spell component for something, which could even eventually lead you to your BBEG. So it does grant you a lot of storytelling possibilities and makes everything clear for everybody at the table, especially if you're using a crunchy system, because everyone knows this is how it works. But again, there's flexibility in there, and you can stretch it a little bit, but like we'll talk about in the last chat, be careful how far you stretch.
Yeah. So I can agree with that one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, since Skrat won, I guess this time it was right in the middle. I guess I'll go, so we can kind of remark on mine. That'll give Skrat more time. Be generous here. My final thought is actually something that I'm going to be doing when I flesh out how magic is going to work in my system that I'm just piecemeal making up slowly. One of the things I want to do is have no actual spells originally in the game. And then instead present the GM with how spells are made. So this is how spells are made in this system. And the job of someone who wants to play a magic user and have that power, well, then you got to do the homework. You got to actually make a spell. And I would probably, give the basic, I'd probably list out examples on a fire spell, ice spell, So I'd probably just use the fire spell as an example. Choice, element, component necessary, this or that. And then part of the spell system for this qualifying for the hard chat is that the more limitations you put on it, the more specific you make it, and other considerations like that, the, quote, cheaper the spell is. So the reason a cantrip is so, let's say, take Like prestidigitation wouldn't exist in this system, but
It's the best.
But prestidigitation is the best spell in D&D, as far as in D&D Pathfinder and its equivalents, in my opinion, as far as cantrips. But something like that wouldn't exist. So if you wanted to clean this thing, you make it specific, and the more specific and the more direct you make it, the more knowledge you have. So you have the study element for a wizard. You have, then that is something you would be able to do that something like a sorcerer wouldn't. They can't clean a specific thing, and they can't handle that type of specificity, at least in the way I'm going to do my system. If you want to do something that specific, you have to study about it. And so the more personal knowledge the character has, the more they're able to affect it, which would make knowledge a valuable thing. Mm-hmm. So figuring out and actually letting your characters your players make spells of their own, put their own flavors on it, will make them appreciate and enjoy this more. We see this. I don't watch them now. I haven't watched them recently, but when Acquisitions Incorporated first came out, Jim the Wizard, who was obsessed with money and not very bright as far as wisdom. He was smart, but not bright, and he was really conceited, all that type of stuff. His was Jim. It wasn't. What was his character's name? It was his character's name, Magic Missile. Jim's Magic Missile or something like that.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And it was. They actually did end up making that spell in the game, but it spent money as its component or something like that because he came from a rich family, so he just used it as a component. So because he didn't care because it was just money or something like that.
That's funny.
But it's 1 gold piece per missile. It's really expensive. And that felt unique. That was unique to that person. So using that, but let your players do that. Let your players flavor their own stuff. We do that, like I said, with Magic Missile and other things. So if you're having trouble with players attaching themselves and being invested in a hard system, just to help them realize that this isn't limiting your creativity. This is giving you a bunch of different little ways to express that creativity within these different frameworks. It's like building a Gundam versus just making one up and saying that your robot fights this robot. So that's my final thought.
Very cool.
I'm gonna parrot a couple points here that Dan brought up. And we'll find out why, I guess, in the next episode. But I do prefer soft magic for playing, whether it's tabletop or a video game. But from a storytelling perspective, I much prefer the hard magic system because you can predict, you can understand it, like what you were saying earlier. But I find that much more interesting to see like how the characters are going to get out of a situation. It's like you understand the stakes, and you know, or you hopefully know that this whoever's writing this story, whether it's your game master or movie or book or whatever it is you're into, like they're not going to hand wave and pull a Star Wars, right, and do something weird with the Force that just changes everything all of a sudden and flips the script. So you understand how this works, and you're like, okay, how is this character going to get out of that situation? Mm-hmm. You know, I'm invested. I'm interested to see how they're going to pull this off. But the other thing was, I can really understand, well, maybe not really understand, but I can somewhat understand how some players find the hard system hosier, for a lack of better words. Because you had mentioned, you know, sometimes they get put on the spot. Oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to come up with. But on the other hand, it's also like, hey, I don't I work all day. I'm tired. I don't want to have to think. I'm doing this for fun. I just want to tell me what my spell does, and I'll just roll some dice.
Mm-hmm.
See, for me, it's harder to thumb through all the descriptions and put it all together and retain all the information. It's like, no, making something up is way easier for me. But for some people, like my wife, she's rather have it laid out, and she can just look over that information. It's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this, and she'll come up with stuff I wouldn't have thought of normally, but for her that's easier. So but like you said, session 0, right?
Yep.
That's where it's at.
We are talking about a social communicative game.
I know, it's terrible. It's the worst.
This is the worst game ever. I make videos about it. You should see.
Yeah. Well, hey, the next video is about solo, so.
Oh no! There you go.
That's
All right.
all I got.
Yeah.
Well, cool beans. And I think we've covered some pretty good stuff, and we are just about on time. We're doing good with this little timer, guys.
That's a solid note for you, GM. Sand timers.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to end too early, so now you can't flip it over and reset it and get the right time.
Oh, well, we're pretty close. I can waste enough time to get us there. But in all seriousness, we hope that you have enjoyed the chat. We've done final thoughts, so if you want to support the Planar Crossroads, you can check us out at theiopc.com or inofplanarcrossroads.com. Either one of those works. We do not yet have a one for support on the other channel, but that's okay. You can always get a hold of me, normal ways. Still gets to the same person. What about Avenue Studios? How might they find you?
Oh, well, thank you very much. You can support us through Patreon and Locals. We do actually have a website now, so that's exciting. avenuestudios.media. Check it out. Links to everything there. But yeah, if you support us through Patreon and Locals, you gain access to our private Discord. We watch movies, play games. Westmarch specifically is the big thing. Westmarch Kingmakers. Pathfinder game we're doing with our supporters. Very exciting. So, yeah, we'd love to see you in the forest.
All right. What you got, squirrel?
I don't have near that many socials. It's just YouTube. We already determined I'm antisocial, so.
You're probably going to end up healthier than me.
All right.
That's all I got going for me, man. This is YouTube.
All right.
And a Discord, I guess, which is in the YouTube descriptions.
There you go. So check out A Squirrel Plays on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
As always, have a great day. God bless and enjoy. Bye.
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 This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.
All right. We finished.
Right on time.
Yes.
Look at that.
Right on time. All right, gents. Now, before we get into the next one, Dan, I was telling Skrat about something I think that you should do. Okay?
Uh-oh.
I made a remark,
Let's hear it.
and he said, I can dig it. And I started going,
Oh.
I can dig it, she can dig it, we can dig it. Oh, let's dig it. And it set me on this whole thing where I was like, Dan needs to make that. I want to see the dwarves as, not those specific dwarves, but dwarves as described in The Hobbit,
Oh.
in their mind, doing, I can dig it, she can dig it, we can dig it. Oh, let's dig it. Can you dig it, baby?
I almost wanted in the, the Ralph Bakshi style.
Yes, that's my head too. That.
Right?
So go ahead, just get all Maple Ave. They can all be dwarves.
Yeah.
You get it in their thing, and you can have them you can go out to one of the caves or something like that.
Yeah, you rotoscope it.
Yeah, you got to rotoscope it though. But now they have plugins that you can do that a lot faster.
That's true. Yeah.
So it wouldn't actually be as hard. So
I would like to try those. That'd be fun.
I just thought it out there.
Yeah, we'll add it to the list.
Add it to the list. All right. Okay. So I'm going to stop this one.